Coming up this week on Beyond the Vibe, we're joined by Shane and Ronnie of Those Damn Crows.
I remember one of the gigs, like the lights went off and there was just a spotlight on me. I was like, what? You remember those Fisher Price little tape recorders, cassette recorders? Yeah. And I had a microphone attached to it, one of those spiral lines with it, and I used to take that everywhere and I would record myself, even from a young age.
Both failing music, which made him furious. We both had separate prep talks off him in separate parts of the building, which he told us both he was absolutely distraught and, appalled that we could have screwed up.
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Vibe, the show that cuts deep into the world of music.
My name is Aaron Day. I'm UK guitarist in blues rock band These Wicked Rivers from beautiful Derby, and I'm here with music videographer and photographer. It's Mr. Ryan Vasey.
Yes.
Mr. Vasey, what you been listening to, man?
I listened to Those Damn Crows.
Of course, yeah. So we're chatting to them this week, aren't we?
Yeah, well, it so happens that we are. Yeah.
Mr. Vasey said that. Yeah, I checked out Crowcast as well, most recent one with Charlie Starr, because obviously I'm a big Blackberry Smoke fan. Love the format they've got now. I think they're killing it. Obviously it's nice to be able to chat to guys that are doing a similar thing that we're doing. It flowed really well. Enjoyed it.
Yes. The other thing, which for me, from my perspective, gave an extra layer of joy, was that they had nice cameras and mics. So I was like,
lovely cameras and mics.
Yeah, I was like, this is nice.
I've been listening to some air metal this week.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've been listening to some Dokken, some Rat. Yeah.
Right.
There's a Dokken album called Under Lock and Key. Right, it's got a song called Unchain the Night, which opens with it. And for me, it's like 80s metal in its best form because it's a bit dark, it's very melodic. Also listening to a bit of Queensryche, which is more okay. I never liked Queensryche before. Really? But there's a couple of songs on there that's like on the album Empire, Jet City Woman, stuff like that. I Don't Believe in Love. It's classic stuff, man. Anything so yeah. What you like with the hair metal?
I mean, I've never been majorly into it. I was more that direction when I was like 16 to 18. See, me throughout the years, I've been going backwards in time.
I have as well. Yeah, I have as well, though. It's
I started off with those kind of 80s type stuff like Motley Crue and all those kind of typical ones.
I've reached a point now where I'm more. I had a point where I went very backwards, like 60s stuff, and then I reached a point where I met my missus where it's like, okay, I think I'm very comfortable with where I am now, and it's like it's okay for me to go back and listen to that stuff. But I mean, in our conversation, you're saying you don't enjoy it as much looking back.
No, I have this kind of fond thing, and I go, you know what, I'm going to go back and listen to some of this, and then I listen to it for about 10 minutes. And I'm like, it's not as I remember it.
I struggle because I've got so much kind of attachment to it. It's like I really vibe off it. But yeah, just been going down memory lane a little bit, which is exactly segue.
Yes.
What we do with Those Damn Crows.
I was digging that segue.
Oh, I thought you would. You're absolute TV whore. You are. Yeah. So you love a good segue. So yeah, make sure you check out our interview coming up now with Those Damn Crows, where we hear all about the guys that were involved in their upbringing, best musical education you could ever imagine, and we'll hear that interview right now. So we're here with Shane and Ronnie of Those Damn Crows, and obviously Crowcast. Thanks for joining us, boys.
Hey.
Absolute pleasure, boys. Thank you for having us.
It's cool. So one thing we like to do on the podcast is we like to go right back to the beginning. So how did it all start for you guys? How did you get into singing, Shane? And same for you, Ronnie, with drums.
Okay. Jeepers. I mean, I've been singing. My family tell me I was singing. I came out singing. My dad was a singer and guitarist. So there was always music in the house and always listening to him, and he loved his country stuff. So Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, all that type of stuff was always playing, and he would like to do his own versions of them. And it wasn't until I grew up and listened to the originals, I'm thinking he's singing the wrong words there. He'd make up his own lyrics, he'd make up his own sort of melody lines. So I sang from a really early age, and kind of country was the first thing I kind of listened to, and it wasn't until I became sort of a teenager. I met up with Ronnie in school. Myself and Ronnie knew each other in junior school. And then it wasn't until we went to the comp and we had a kick-ass music teacher who was just so supportive, Peter Jones, who kind of got us together in the music room, and we just jammed and you know, grunge was massive when we were kids in school. So Nirvana, Green Day, Pearl Jam, those type of bands, guitar-based bands, then became everything. So yeah, long and short, that's it.
And from your perspective, like because like when I first started playing guitar, I had that initial period of about probably 4 years where it was like, fucking hell, this is hard work. Like, I really need to spend time with this. Or but as a vocalist, is it just straight away like, this is who I'm meant to be, this is where I'm meant to go?
I remember having really young. You remember those Fisher Price little tape recorders, cassette recorders, yes. And I had a microphone attached to it, one of those spiral lines with it, and I used to take that everywhere, and I would record myself even from a young age. And there was these little cassettes, and it wasn't just singing; it was like comedy spoofs. I'd do these little stints, and you know, we found a tape not so long back, and we play it back, and like, oh my god, it's just this kid on like Mickey Mouse. I'm sounding like Mickey Mouse, really high pitched voice, and I'm doing these comedy skits, and I'm singing, and you know, really loud, distorted down the microphone, and it's really distorting and stuff. But I don't know, man. I don't know whether it's the nature nurture thing. I heard my dad sing, and my dad had an incredible voice. He had this really deep. His voice was like velvet. So what a great sort of eye-opener and teacher. And that was my instinctive. My pitch was really good young. I could hear a song and play it on the keys, or pick up a guitar and I know what chords to play. I don't know. I think it was because I heard so much music as a kid. I was able to pick it up really quick. But it wasn't until I went to the comprehensive school and jammed out with my mates, and like I said, the supportive music teacher. You kind of then hone your craft, you know, and really that became my everything. Then everything else was secondary to music.
No, that's really cool, man. I like that link, as you say, with your dad, almost with making the lyrics up, you know, to country songs, because it's like it's already inbuilt that creativity into you and that improvisation, and then it's almost like the voice recording stuff with the Fisher Price has then fallen weirdly into Crowcast as well. So it's it's all intertwined, man. It's a weird journey.
But my dad would play guitar. And I've got his guitar right there, because he's passed now. He's been dead 10 years, but he bought me a guitar, a really crappy second-hand electric guitar, and we'd plug it into a little Marshall this big, and then he would just say, "I'll play a song and you improvise. You come into you play in the space where you think." And looking back now, I didn't think of anything at the time, but looking back now, it was teaching me when to come in, when not to come in, when not to overlap. You know, almost like the song is paramount. I'm making it work within that song. So, incredible lessons, man. And I don't even know if he knew it, but it just instinctively he would say, "Come up with, you know, there's I don't know, 12 bars. What will you do there?" And I would just kind of have these melodies on the guitar. I wasn't a great guitarist, Aaron, and not to this day, but I could pick out melody. I could pick out rhythm and melody. I like my go-to thing. I'm not technically brilliant by any stretch of the imagination, but they were the fundamental basics from a very early age.
And they're the foundations, man. You know, I think it's harder to teach that than the next level stuff. Like, because I think that's more part of you. You know, and it's so cool that your dad just inbuilt that into you from an early age. You know, I think we've all I've got the same similar story with my dad, where it was almost like you say, you kind of look back and you don't know whether he did it on purpose or whether it was some master plan, like messy for shit, like back, like. There where from a young age he's watching me, but no, that's really cool, man. What about you, Ronnie? Did you have Fisher Price drum kit? Was there thing on the go?
Yeah. You still going?
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for it. Set it up beautiful. There's similarities with like Shane's background, and then there's like polar opposites where I was really fortunate. My dad, he made a living from music. He was a pro musician, like. But with that went the negatives that went with it as well. So he wasn't very. Where Shane's dad encouraged him, for example, my dad wasn't really in that frame of mind. It was almost like he was in a career that he was trying to force me out of. So I was very fortunate to grow up in orchestral pits, and I was around like West End shows or pantomimes and all these magnificent things, or in the BBC or in ITV or Granada, what it used to be called. But yet not having that encouragement of music. So, you know, I used to kind of hang out with my uncles, which I thought they were uncles, but they're obviously bandmates. There'd be your Uncle Ted who'd be playing the piano, or he'd be playing like the organ and stuff. So I was always keen on what he was doing or jingle jangling about. And same as Shane, I'd be kind of picking up on the melodies. And then what used to do it for me is when you're part of a production, especially right from the early days of like the rehearsals right through to you doing matinees and stuff like that, you hear the chorus lines, like, you know, when they come out, and like the multi-layering of vocals. I was always obsessed with like how the main singer would come out and then like the chorus line behind would be singing a completely different melody line, and then the next chorus line would be doing a third, you know what I mean, especially with those show tunes. Yeah, there'd be 3 melodies going off, but yet they all match and sound incredible. That used to be the stuff that gave me goosepimples, as like, and I'm talking like 5, 6, 7, 8. Do you know what I mean? It was just like you'd just be sitting there, or I would, in the pit. I was never really looking at like the drums. It's a weird one with my dad, because I'd go on his drums in like the in the intervals between a show, so there'd be no one in this like beautiful theatre, and I'd sit in a drum kit, and I think that's where it started. It was almost like that John Bonham-esque. I'd hit the kick drum, and like for any drummers who's watching this, when you hit that kick drum in a massive theatre, it's like boom boom, and you hear the roar of it, and I was like, oh, and then I hit the snare, and I was like, boom, 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 bah. And then all of a sudden it starts to come together, and it's just that noise. But normally 9 out of 10, you'd see my father run up from behind the scenes and go, get off my drum kit. Like, so then, yeah, echoing like what Shane used to say, obviously my dad used to have like little almost like detective dictaphones and stuff like that. And so I'd always kind of have them in the house, and I'd be doing DJ sets, mixtapes. So whether it was like Jungle Book vinyls, and kind of trying to record them. So I'd have the dictaphone up against my vinyl, and then I'd talk over it in the middle and go, and that was the Jungle Book. And I'd just be kind of doing that animated radio show thing. And then weirdly, yeah, went through school with Shane, no musical talk or anything. And then same music teacher as Mr. Greenhalgh there, just dragged me out of a geography lesson and said, what are you doing here? I'd done my options. And I said, oh, you know, my dad's told me I've got to do geography. He was like, no, you're not. And he basically said to my geography teacher, you're never coming back. Dragged me down to the music room, and there was just piles of boxes. And he said, your first lesson is to open them. And when I opened them, he'd bought a brand new drum kit. And then I learned to tune it off the piano with him, yet again by ear. So he'd hit the note and then obviously tune the skins. And then the next thing you know, we were jamming Shine, Jesus, Shine. And I didn't even know what I was doing. And now
That's
I
a
look
banger,
back.
that is. That's a banger, Shine, Jesus, Shine.
It is, isn't it? It was like, he just started rocking out, and Shane knows what he's like. He just started like, it was Shine, Jesus, Shine, which was like a proper hymn. But he'd be playing it in a honky-tonk kind of rock and rolly style. And like, I just remember playing the drums, and it was 4/4. It just naturally came out, and you went, and that's why you're doing music. So if it wasn't for him genuinely, I mean, I always grew up with little snare drums behind my head, or like you said, Fisher-Price drum kits and stuff, but there was never really the urge to kind of nurture that or push it, or and like I said, I think because my dad came from the session world, it was always like competitive, and how are you paying the bills if you're not on top of your game? And then the music world had changed, and you've got to think, like, my dad's like ancient, so he's been a drummer since, Jesus Christ, since the 30s.
Wow.
So he's gone through all the big bands, all the jazz, and then to come to this rock thing, he was just like, no, there's no life, there's no life in this rock thing. Do you know what I mean? He's just like, so yeah, he's completely out. He's Dragon's Den on that. There's no rock. And then yeah, me and Shane started jamming in school, and that's basically like the foundations of how I became a drummer, or how I became a musician, was just the thankfully my dad and his career and the opportunities that I had and the people I met, and that's incredible. So I thank him for that. But no, jumping on a drum kit was all a crazy music teacher who didn't really know me, who knew of my dad, and just basically, I think he took a hunch and just thought, I bet he could play drums. I tell you what, I'll spend the school budget and gamble it and see if
I love that.
You both got really wonderful stories, boys. Like, you know, it's really kind of like, if when the biop gets made, do you know what I mean? It's already written. Have you linked up with this music teacher, like, past school? It's like a geezer, man.
This is the tragedy. This is the tragedy and the film part of it. So myself and Shane leave school. We've dabbled in bands at that point. I mean, we laughed the other day because Shane reminded me of our first gig, which that's definitely for the film to reveal that one. And I forgot about that, which is bizarre because I always think my first gig was the coolest gig that I ever played. Not, you know, it's not those bizarre moments, like, do you know what I mean? And but they were our first gigs, and Peter encouraged that. God bless him. Then we left school, both failing music, which made him furious. We both had separate prep talks off him in separate parts of the building, which he told us both he was absolutely distraught and, you know, appalled that we could have screwed up. But the practical side, we smashed it. It was just, for me, Shane can come in here, but for me, it was Vivaldi. That's what caught me. It was like learning Four Seasons? See, I remember that shit now.
I've got a fucking great memory. I can't remember shit about what I did.
Yeah, but to be honest, the title and who composed it wasn't on the exam sheet.
No.
So if it was...
Yeah.
So that sounds impressive, doesn't it? Vivaldi, Four Seasons. Yeah, but the problem is, Ron, there was no questions on the author or the composer.
No, it's funny because he was so annoyed, and you know, without sounding a bit of a dick here, music was so easy. It almost felt like, you know, because you'd have to compose and stuff, and that was my element, and that's the stuff I loved. And but it was the other side, it's the theory side, as Ronnie said, that you know, you've got to learn somebody else's songs and not just like a band you like he used to chuck on the Beatles and say what instruments are being played, and we'd write them down, and you know, he'd be like, oh, well done, Shane, you knew that there was an oboe in there, you know, and orchestral music. But when it came to like the theory side of things, and that really I didn't have the interest for that. So I remember it was the first time I heard a teacher, you got to remember now, we're in school, a teacher coming up to me, and he was so angry. I'd never seen this version of him, and his words were, I am so pissed off. And I was like, oh, a teacher swore at me. Like, a teacher, how
deal, isn't it?
Yeah, man, a teacher is swearing at me right now. He was so upset and angry that, and I walked away like being so, I felt bad. I let him down. And he was like, well, what are you going to do now? You can't go to college. You can't do this. You can't do that. And I was like, he's right. I've ruined it. My life is ruined. Music is what I want to do. But it was never that side of, you know, music that I wanted to do. I wanted to compose, but not in the way, like, you know, college and university. It was just about getting up and performing and writing and doing what I loved. Like that was the, and you got to remember this Peter Jones, in the juniors, his wife was in my school. She was my favorite teacher, and in her words, I was her favorite pupil. So she would allow me play on the piano in the school hall. So there was almost like this team up of husband and wife setting me up. And so I went to comp, and I remember Peter Jones saying, so you're Shane, you're the boy my wife keeps talking about. And it was exactly the same. Like, nobody could touch Peter Jones's piano in the music room, but he'd allow me to do it. So I almost felt like I had this safety net, this support network. I was so free and allowed to do whatever I wanted to do. And I will never, ever forget it. And, you know, the sad thing is he's passed away now. So, you know, he never got to see the little bit of success the Crows are getting right now. But, well, maybe he is. Who knows? You know. But
that's the thing. I mean, like Shane said, when we left school, we both went to college, and sadly, he passed away then. So it was like literally when we'd left school, he just passed away. So all the years of, like, you know, you're playing to crowds or you're dropping records or getting video on TV, it'd be kind of nice. Like, we've both individually and collectively always credited him throughout our life anyway, never mind just for music industry. That's to family, to friends, to so it is kind of sad that the one person that you want to thank isn't there. Do you know what I mean? That is a tragic thing, like, you know. So
it's good. You're living his legacy though, boys, you know, and by telling stories like you've done there, it continues to keep his legacy and his impact alive, you know. And the more you grow the band and the overall family around it all, you know, the longer that lives on. So yeah, no, it's just it's a heartwarming story, boys, to start off with. I feel like we've dived straight into the deep end. I'm feeling emotional like earlier.
It's an emotional start, man.
That's what you get with the Crows, man. We're all in. We're quite deep.
No, I love it. I mean, you touched on the overall progression there. So, I mean, the Crows didn't kind of officially form then until 2014. So, was this when you were both in college then? How old were you in 2014, if you don't mind me asking?
That would have been, jump in if I'm wrong, Shane. That would have been about 1996.
Right, when it kind of officially... Oh, when you was in college, sorry.
That's when we left school, went to college. Nirvana had exploded. Green Day, I was massive into Green Day. So we kind of started like college band. That's when we like started our first proper band together. Would have been, I think Shane tried college, but it wasn't really for you, was it, bro? It was like
2 weeks. I was in college for 2 weeks. I was like, I can either stay here now for a year and a half, 2 years, and learn nothing. And that's how it felt. It just felt like we were rocking up and jamming. And I was like, I don't know. I just lost. I don't know. Perhaps I was still caught up on the whole college and university thing and learning. I didn't want to know about the technical side of things. I just wanted to get out there and perform. Maybe foolish. Perhaps I'd be 10 times better.
Bizarrely, like, I didn't go into, so that would have been performing arts in our local college, Bridgend College. But bizarrely, so Shane joins there with our now guitarist Shiner. I go and do business studies because yet again, you know, Dad is still in the game, and he's like, oh no, you're not doing that music thing. So I go and do business studies, and then the cool thing about that was, because it's like a small college, I get to go over to the performing arts block, and you just kind of check in on what's going on. So we met the same people, didn't we, Shane? So whether you went to performing arts or you didn't, you know, we already knew, like, the Bridgend scene was like banging at that point. And what I mean by that is, like, it was building and bubbling. So we'd gone to school with, like, your Jeff Giljohns, who turned into Bullet for My Valentine. And then you joined college, and some of them went to college as well. So we were already hanging out because we're all buddies at this point. And we met another Mr. Jones then, which was because a lot of Jones in Wales, believe it or not. So we met another Mr. Jones then, which was Phil Jones. So you can't write that. So we've just left Peter Jones. Tragically, he passes away. Then
PJ.
Yeah, PJ. Then we meet Phil Jones, Geronimo Jones. He's the most, I don't know, he was just so incredible because he basically took us to that next level. And what I mean by that is he said, right, what you've learnt with this, Peter, but he didn't know this, like basically what we learnt with that, then this is the fun part about if you want to be in a band, this is being in a band. So the theatrics of it, the touring, the stories, because he was in a band called Sex. in South Wales. Should have probably done more than they did, but there's loads of stories why, and like the name and stuff like that, and like even Phil Jones said to us, there's a lot that he probably should have gone back and changed. He was a stubborn bugger as well, but it was thanks to him, and why I'm telling this long-winded story,
It's cool.
that we did our first gig in London, and that was myself, Shane, and Shiner.
Right.
So our first proper band. The first thing he said was "boys," and that's how we used to talk, boys. He'd say, "You don't want to bother around you." He was like, "You'll always have Wales. You can always come back to Wales, but you've got to go to London. You've got to go to the smoke. You have to go up there. Big time up there, see, big time." And he was explaining all that. So we started fucking sorry, I dropped the F-bomb.
Cool,
we started packing 52-seater coaches. And putting your family and your friends in the local pub, Winnishane, and making our own tickets and stuff, and starting to sell a venue out up in London by taking up buses of basically the Welsh Valleys with him, like, do you know what I mean? The only thing he didn't tell us, and the only thing that we didn't learn at that point, was you should have found a record label, because if we would have done that, we did everything else correct. Like, you know, we'd got 1 to 2 coaches up there on a day trip. We sold it as a full-on day experience, trip to London, and you get to come and see us. But a trip to London, it would pay for all the expenses, pay for the bus, and they get to go and, you know, take photos in Trafalgar Square and, oh, look, Big Ben, kids. And then they come to a gig then in a night, watch us, and we would have sold out the venue. So that was Phil, wasn't it? Thankfully Phil, like, you know.
Yeah, it was such a great scene, as Ronnie said, in Bridgend, that even though if you're in college, the minute that bell went in college, you would hang out with the same people in college and the same teachers in college, because there'd be a jam night somewhere. Right. So it'd be, your day could like go from 9 o'clock in the morning to like 1 o'clock in the morning, like the next morning, because there was always these jam nights. So it was like an extension of college. You were just jamming all the time, learning with and playing with different musicians. And I mean, quality musicians, boys, you know, like not just like kids. I'm talking about, you go to these jam nights and the guitar collection was phenomenal. They've all got long hair, and there's so many people I've got on my head right now that kind of would allow us them instruments on a jam night, you know, these thousands of pounds worth of guitar, Les Pauls, and, you know.
Well, Mark Jones, wasn't it? He had like a collection of like, geez, good God, man.
Yeah.
Thousands, wasn't it?
Massive when you're that age, isn't it? Because it feels like it just pulls you up another 2 levels, like, especially when you're just a little nipper.
100%. You're absolutely right.
16 at this point as well.
Yeah, it's mad.
We've just left school 16, 17 in a Shane. And, you know, like Shane said, we're getting a lift down to, which is about, how far is Puthcore from us roughly? 10 miles, 20 miles?
Yeah, about that, 7-8 miles, I think.
We're going to lift, like Shane said, like down to a jam night, and you've got thousands of pounds. Oh, he's playing $3,000 guitar.
$3,000 guitar. I'm 16. I got a $3,000 guitar, and I'm like, this is what I want. And he's like, go on, have it. But again, it was exactly the same like Peter Jones. When someone can see that you can, you know, play an instrument and you respect that, it's different to like, we weren't like a punk band rocking up, pissed out of our heads and abusing these. We were even at that age, dude, we were like, this is what we want to be. We were so, and I think that the older generation, these guys putting on these jam nights could see that and had a bit of faith and just said, yeah, use that one. And I was like, oh, really? $3,000 worth of guitar, and you know, my neck was killing because I haven't played such an heavy instrument in my entire life. But what a feeling like, and again, you're right, Darren. It just makes you believe, and this is the thing. Our music teacher made us believe. Our college teacher made us believe. These people you were jamming with made you believe you were one of them. And all of a sudden, those steps, those rings on a ladder aren't here. They're right here. And they're doable, they're manageable.
You're living it a little bit as well. And the thing is, like, you've pretty much had the ultimate education for where you both wanted to be. I mean, I don't think it was the education that, like, Welsh National Education Council intended you to have by the two Peters, but it was what the two of you wanted. And, like, I think you're both obviously really lucky. And then the good thing as well, you've taken that opportunity as well. Like, you were both hungry for it at the time, and you're even more hungry for it now, and it's just carried on, you know. And I think that's the key thing, is that because looking back, you don't have any regrets about that. You just went full in.
Exactly that, but it just almost steamrolled. The momentum just kept going. Where you thought, oh, I'd love to get up there and play, you were doing it. And then, those bigger shows weren't such a daunting thing. It was never a case of, oh, I'm a bit afraid to get up there, because you were in it, you were doing it. So it was almost like the momentum and just snowballed into the next gig, into the next. Oh, it's a bigger gig today. It's a bigger pub, sorry, to do a jam night. And it was just incredible looking back now. What an apprenticeship, man.
Yeah, big time, man.
Yeah, it's cool. So Those Damn Crows, the name, it's quite an unusual name, isn't it? Is there like a story behind that, or is it just something you kind of arrived at?
Yeah, for sure. We did the whole pick 3,000 names, and this one means, we're dark and we're ready, or this one is, and we were like just going through the mill really of like loads of names. I can't even remember half of them, but there was just like, and then I just went down my dad's, and like I said, my dad's quite elderly, and he was feeding the birds out in the back garden. And I remember a few crows just landed down, and he just went, "Those damn crows." And it's just how he did. He was shouting and he was waving his arm, and it just tickled me, it did. So I went home and wrote a song, like a bluesy lick, and the tagline was "Those damn crows." And when I sent it over to the boys, it just escalated from there. I don't know whether I think it was Lloyd. Was it Lloyd first picked up on it? And went, I really like that as a name. So it was just like a happy accident. And that was it, really, wasn't it? It wasn't like
Ronnie did this like demo, and I couldn't believe the register he was in. He was down here. He was really low, and that was the line, the tagline. He went, "Those damn crows," and I was like, "Oh, Barry White." But he was, we laughed like, but little did we know that, that name. Like Ronnie said, when this old man was kind of like angry, these birds, I almost imagine like the older generation telling us to turn it down because we're too loud in the room next door, and then you have a picture, an idea of, we're a loud band anyway. So it just worked, man. I don't think I particularly jumped on it when I first heard it, but now on reflection, it really sells us. It's amazing what a name can do, really.
Yeah, man, and a lot of bands kind of regret their names, but I mean, we've both been in bands in the past. It's like, it's the coolest name I've ever had in a band, and I'll admit that. And if any like ex-members are watching, I'm sorry, because I never came up with the old names, but they were crap. And
I tell you what, though, how many people in the industry told us to change it?
Oh, that's interesting.
Really?
Yeah, there's a truth bomb few. There was a good few at the beginning of the chapter who, they were never like, I don't know, disrespectful to us. They were just disrespectful. Say they didn't like the name. They thought that it didn't match the band. They didn't feel that it was the right fit. And there was a lot of talk about rebranding and stuff like that. So yeah, I forgot about that, Shane. That's a good.
Yeah, that's a good little tale on that. Because it's difficult. Because for me, I think, like, whenever you come up with a band name, like you kind of touched on, Shane, there's always that initial trepidation, like, is it shit? Is it corny? Is it weird? But then as you start to build the character and the identity around the band, it just becomes who you are, like, and it becomes unquestionable, and I like the fact you stuck by it, because it's, it stood tall by it, man, because it's serving you now.
I mean, like Shane said, he wasn't really like all over at the beginning, but I remember when the first person, to be exact, brought it up that they didn't like the name. I remember you jumping in and going, "Oh, I really like it all." It was almost, because at that point you've almost like
you've served it, haven't you? You've lived with it.
Marriage with it, didn't you? Like, you're like, hang on,
and what sold it for me was we hadn't done many gigs, boys, and we done our kind of first rehearsal, and we had this idea of this introduction. And the whole, what we still do to this day, we are those damn, and then the crowd sing crows. And it just, I remember Ronnie sitting on the drums going, "That's rock and roll." Well, he said something else, but along those lines. But he was just really, I think about it, and you just, right there in that moment, that's what you're in the band for those moments. And if we were excited about it, I can imagine other people would be excited about it. And so it's mad. We didn't, you think of other bands though, like Queen, Foo Fighters, they're not the best band names on the planet, but the band name almost comes secondary because you think of the band, the quality of the music now. It's not the band name that represents the band. You almost see it sort of off the cuff. It's not even a thought. So I just think some bands think, we need a cool name. It's not really important. If your music is important, if your music is good, I guarantee you, no matter what your name is, that'll be good. It just will. Honestly,
I think Ronnie touched on it. I think once you serve it and you've ridden with it for a couple of years, like you're married to it, man. That's just the name of the band, and you have that connection to it. I mean, taking a bit of a jump down the timeline and kind of going with a band that obviously made the decision to change their name. I mean, I think our first gig with you boys was supporting Bad Flowers.
Yes.
And I remember when you said it, Shane, about those Damn Crows intro thing. I was like, I can remember seeing it and being like, "Yo, this band like knows who they are, like they've got it." And like particularly with you, Shane, as well. I remember you having control over the crowd, brother, and it was a really sick gig. Between them three bands together, it was killer. I mean, at that point, I think you'd had obviously significant airplay on BBC Radio Wales. I think you'd been declared once to watch by Planet Rock, and been in Metal Hammer. And had you at that point signed the deal with Earache? Did that come at that point?
No, way off. Yeah, way off still.
Right. Okay. So were you feeling the rumblings that were going towards that? Were you feeling the rise? I mean, how long did it get you to the point when it was like, we're ready now for this next step, and then obviously the point where Earache got involved?
It's a great question, Bud, because I remember that gig like it was yesterday, and I completely, I thank you so much for what you said, brother. That's really kind of you. But like that gig in particular, I was kind of nervous. We were up, on the same bill as you guys, and we did the sound check, and it was like, "Ooh, check these out. These are good." And it's like, which makes you raise your game always. I love that whole thing. It's that friendly competition. It makes you be better. But I remember being, we're up in, I think it was Birmingham, right? Yeah, that was.
Yeah, that was the Asylum.
Yeah, and I think that was that the first time we played Birmingham, Ron? And so for me, what I'm trying to say is I didn't feel comfortable on that stage.
Right.
I really didn't.
That's really interesting, man.
And I don't think we were anywhere near thinking we were going to, get signed or there's traction, or we were just playing a gig. I didn't personally have that thinking, we're bigger than the rest of the bands on the bill or blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? It was a gig with these cracking musicians. What a great night this is going to be. Ron, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo what Shane said. That gig was well off the sign-in period.
Oh yeah.
We to get the timeline kind of right. We just decided we were on our own, right? That was the best way to put it. We had come out of being signed to an agent at that period. We were around kind of not being able to gig, and then we just made our own list of bands that we just wanted to play with. And then that was the mission. And a lot of the bills, it felt like we were welcomed. A lot of the bills, it'd be like, "Oh, what are they doing here?" And then we just kind of focused on us, which was the great fool to kind of watch us rise. Because like if there was a gig where we felt we weren't wanted, then that made us want to play even better again. Like, do you get what I mean? And then it was almost never to get a record deal or to get there. It was almost just to play better gigs and more gigs and more gigs to be put in front of more people. And the only way we could do that is just playing gigs. So it was a case of, if you wanted us, like I said this on a recent podcast, and I think Shane has, we drove all the way to Wolverhampton or somewhere like that, and we played with Thea. We didn't get paid. It was just a case of, it's a gig. We've gone to Ireland. It's never been about the money. It was just a gig. So it was always, who could we play with? Who is hot? Who are everybody buzzing about? I mean, at that period, as you boys know as well, it was the Bad Flowers. So we wanted to play their launch show. Then as soon as we played that, what's next? It was just a case
keep pushing and pushing for the band.
Yeah, what's next? Because you're only as good as your last show. And the first thing we said to the boys outside, look, hope we did okay. And what we mean by that was, hope we've done our job. We've got out your way. It's your fucking launch night. Really nice to meet you. Happy days. But if you ever want us again, you know where we are. And then we obviously had the invite, and it was that tour that really kind of, I would say, would have been the turning point, as in, because there was waves being made along there and spot gigs and stuff like that. But it was like the Bad Flowers tour, really, when like Shane took the plunge, quit his job. There was a lot of decisions made to do that tour. And it was the case of that was the one where we were playing with the Bad Flowers. Then all of a sudden we're opening now, and there's a band called Federal Charm that we didn't really know of. And now there's joint headline, and you're going to be on when the doors open on some nights. And he's going, fuck it, I'll quit my, sorry, F-bomb again, man.
No, that's cool, man.
He, Shane's like, well, I'll quit my job for that. Where a lot of musicians would be like, what? Do you know what I mean? And even I was at the time, and I've told Shane, I've always been honest, going, you can't. But he was going, if I don't, we ain't doing the tour. And if we don't do the tour, the momentum stops. And we're very much a band of momentum, of we gotta keep going, gotta keep that engine rolling. You can't stop. There is no holiday. If one of us is having an holiday, there's always, are you going to be around to take the phone calls? It's always that vibe, like, you know.
There was never a conscious thought about where we're gonna be. There was always a conscious thought of an opportunity, or where are we? So we play with bands and we see where we are. Are we as good as them, or learning constantly? Yeah. I'm so conscious of that. Everybody we go on a bill with, you learn from, and how the rapport they have with the crowd, and what you can do differently. So I've always been conscious of that. And the minute there's an opportunity, like we said before the show, opportunity is everything. It's what you make of it. And I know it sounds like a really rash thing, quitting your job, but I just believed in it so much that, and I was at the age where I thought, I'm either all in, or what's the point? Like, you know, I could do it. I could do both and enjoy it, but I'm not that type of character. I'm like, when I'm in, and I am for strength or weakness, I don't know. But it was just so apparent that if we don't do it, we'll always think, well, you know, missed opportunity there. And I hate that. I hate regrets. I hate, if you're gonna do it. Otherwise, don't.
No, it's just I love the faith. It's just pure faith in what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? To make that leap of faith and be like, you know, I'm going to put all my money in this corner because I believe in it. I mean, when you've got that sheer focus and that sheer direction, and like you say, you're running and you know what you go into. When the point comes when it's almost like, you know, another opportunity comes to change the structure, I imagine it's almost a bit difficult in some ways because you're so focused on running in your own personal direction. So when Earache came, what was it like for you boys? Did it change everything, or did you remain just completely focused with your own structure and your own pattern, or did you give you an opportunity to come away and reflect and think, we can do this better, we can do this differently?
It's a great question, bud. I know there were some people in the band who were pro about the record label. There were some people saying we don't really need it, and that sounds really strange to say because everybody wants a record deal. But what we had worked so hard and got to a level that, and we'd heard so many stories. Don't forget, some of our mates have big record labels, and so we kind of knew the inside information there, and it ain't all, you know, plain sailing. You could be dropped and then nobody will touch you again. Do you know what I mean? So having that, if you don't have the success with a record label, are you going to get it again if they drop you, type thing? Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of things that people don't really understand. And I know Ronnie was like, do we need it, boys? And he'd said this before, so I'm not saying anything kind of new. No. Do we really want it? Do we really need it? It's up to you, boys. I'll go with the flow. And for me, I felt like we had to, because it's that ring in the ladder. It's we've got to this stage, and this person's now wants to be a part of it. And I think it's not so much a risk. It's just you've the circumstances have changed because you've worked hard. And if you ignore that opportunity, you're shutting the door. So I would rather open that door, and if it's, you put everything into it, and if it falls flat on its ass, it falls flat on its ass. But if you're not brave enough to walk through that door and go, okay, let's go for it, you will always fail. Like, I know it sounds like brave and stuff, and maybe it's foolish, I don't know, but there's this sense of if you don't believe in yourself and what you're capable of, nobody else is going to. And if that's your driving goal and your passion, no one can really stop that. No one can. Like, you know, yes, people could turn around and say, no, you're not playing a gig here. All right, I'll go and do a gig somewhere else. You know, there's always options. It's just how far you want to go with that. Like, and I think the biggest thing is if you say no to yourself, or you're scared, that fear kicks in. Oh, I don't want to do it. You know, it's going to upset the apple cart, or this is going to happen if I do that. That's going to happen. Well, you're already talking yourself out of the situation. You're not even thinking about the positivity of this opportunity. You're holding yourself back. Like, just go with it. Right? And it's like Bruce Lee there. Be water. Just go with the flow. So you know, that's always something. I just say to the boys regular, like, you know, don't look, let's just do it. Let's go for it. Opportunity, there's a door open, plow straight through it and see what happens.
That's cool. So the second album came out last year now, Point of No Return. Compared to the first album, Murder in the Motive, sonically it feels kind of much bigger and almost theatrical on certain tracks like Never Win and the recent one on the Ultimate Edition, Sick of Me. When making the album, was this something you guys wanted to include from the start, or was this like something that you arrived at with the introduction of kind of a more orchestral kind of sound and that piano coming in as well?
Do you want to start, Ron?
Did you pick?
Yeah, I mean, when the band, it's two different animals. I mean, when the band started, I remember the only thing that I laid out to the guys, because of like previous bands I've been in, was I just don't want to lose track of the foundations, and the foundations was I love rock and roll. So I've never shied away from that. My problem would have been to kind of, if we use the term sell out, which everybody understands. So I just never wanted to be something that I'm not comfortable being. And I just wanted to resonate that throughout the band. So when you realize that everybody starts feeling like that, then all of a sudden the barriers and the walls come down. And I think that was the only thing. So when we did Murder in the Motive, for example, it was just writing, it was just jamming, it's learning your craft, or that's better, that gets better. Then Dave came along as well, and songs got added to that record, so the vibe started to change with certain tracks. And then when you get to a Point of No Return, for example, we were working with top level producers, like, do you get what I mean? So it's, yet again, it's not something that we were all in for the first time as well. We were all in the same boat, the same ground, where the whole process was completely different. And you either embrace that moment and you enjoy that moment, or it's really not for you. That would have been the point to kind of, I think if any of us in the band didn't enjoy it, to leave or go, this isn't for me, guys, but best wishes for you, like, you know. But working with like Chris, he's incredible, and working with Colin Richardson was just something. I think we were going to do it with Murder in the Motive, weren't we, Shane? Through a mutual buddy mentioned Colin Richardson, and we were like, whoa, Colin Richardson, you know, like Machine Head, and he was like, so he'd already liked the band from that era, but then obviously with Point of No Return, it was just gloves off. And he's been known for being like this massive metal producer, and he just wanted everybody to know, like, I love rock, like, you know. We always had the vision of, I don't know, it was a debate in a band of, there are bands that we love and adore that are, they're club bands, that's their vibe, like, do you know what I mean? If you can't imagine them selling out an arena, because it wouldn't come across as well, for example. But we always wanted to get to that arena level, and to get to that arena level, as you boys know, and most of the bands in the circuit know, you have to put together a show, and if you want to headline, and you really, really want to headline Donington, which is on our bucket list to do that, you got to put together a set which is a killer festival playlist, like a sing along, so the people at the back know who the band is. Do you know what I mean? It's and that's where Point of No Return was different. It was just the case of the piano came more involved. I mean, we've known Shane could play piano, like he said, he's been playing it since a kid. It's just all about for some of the band, including myself, it was the timing of it. There were other bands on the scene who were pulling out the piano and stuff. And Shane will back me here. We're always like, well, if they're doing that, how can we do it differently? It doesn't always have to be better, but we don't want to look like you're mirroring someone else. So you almost got to kind of make it look differently. And that's why, like, with that said, it was like Shane was like, can you build me like a pub piano? And that becomes different straight away, because it's not just a keyboard being placed on stage or whatever. It was, how can we make it like, you know, Iron Maiden, man? I mean, from day one they were theatrical with the mask, which became Eddie. So, you know, why can't that be our band? Why can't our band be at that level of a Queen or whatever? Whether you are playing the Asylum, KKs, or the NEC, or you get to play Wembley, do you know what I mean? It all starts from those building blocks, and that record was really the new foundations. It's almost like we built the house, and then it was like, oh, we've got all this extra land, what are we going to do with it? And then that's where you start filling it in and going, well, what if we put this building there and we do that? And we've talked about orchestras for years, haven't we, Shane, where it's like, it's just making sure that essence is right. And I don't think we've destroyed that with Point of No Return. I think there's still rock and roll there, and there's riffs like your Queen of the Stone Age vibes and stuff, but then you have real moments which you can actually picture if you close your eyes. You're in Wembley Stadium, and that vibe, I think that's what we wanted to kind of bring across, and the songmanship is there. You know, Never Win is something very personal to Shane, but there are other songs on the record as well that just have those deep moments, like, you know, those pickups, that theatrical, as you said, that word, to make it a show, not just a gig or a set. Like, I don't know if I'm right by there, Shane.
100%, bud. The process of the second album, the journey, was taking a different unknown territory. Like, you know, we were putting ourselves in a position where, and don't forget now, we had, it was almost a luxury, right? We got 3 producers. We got Andy Sneap, whose studio it was, right, who was just incredible. Colin Richardson, incredible. Chris Clancy, incredible. So we got 3 people. So all these demos that were coming in, these guys, you know, forget the band, these guys with all their knowledge, all their know-how, were going, like, I remember Neverwin. Colin was like, it's the reason why I wanted to do the record. I was like, but it's just a piano bass. We're a rock band. And then Andy Sneap going, you're not going to sing that again, are you? We keep that demo. So we kept the demo for the record because he thought we captured something. So it was those elements of, sometimes it's so much easier when someone out of the band says it.
Yeah, 100%.
Just through their experience. So the whole process, the demo writing, the actual recording of it, and then obviously, like Ronnie said, putting on a show to match the clout of the album was really important. And I can't stress enough, I've said it many times, the glass ceiling was smashed. You know, we're a rock band. Well, we can be more. We can, you know, like the Foo Fighters do it incredibly well. They could do Bloodstock, they could do a pop festival. You know, it's got that. They can do both. They got multiple sets. You know what I mean? And I think that's, song wins for us, and the emotion behind the song, the craftsmanship behind the song. You know, this labeling, it's this, it's that. We're not really big fans of, and we don't really get it. But we're just trying to, you know, evolve, and like every band does, I think.
No different than the earache thing, really, Shane. Like, it's rather than it be seen as a change, it's just, as you've said yourself, it's an evolution.
Yes,
you know, it's an evolution from the initial core of the band. You know, so it's it feels natural rather than forced. You know, and I think that's the key thing for it. I mean, for yourself as a frontman, Shane, did it change anything for you, man, in terms of going behind the piano? Was it something that felt natural to you? Did it feel a bit weird to begin with in them first initial gigs? You know, or was it just always felt at home?
It was definitely a moment where, crap, extra pressure.
All eyes are on you at that point.
Yeah, I remember one of the gigs, like the lights went off and there was just a spotlight on me. I was like, what? What are you doing? Like,
it'd be a fucking nightmare if we gave Artwell another job. He struggles with what he's got nailed down now. Never mind then adding a keyboard out on it. So you're killing it, man.
Thank you, bro. No, I was definitely felt the pressure, and Ronnie, like Ronnie said, this process on the second album wasn't just an evolution of the band. I was going through some mega changes in my personal life, right? So my heart and soul went into this album, and I mean that, like literally. I was telling things and saying things that like my personal. So when it came to playing these songs on stage, when there's loads of people and you could literally hear a pin drop, for example, on Never Win, and I'm so nervous just playing the intro. Steelhouse was the first time we played with a piano, and I made so many cuts from the intro, and I was sweating, and even things like, because I'd never done it before, like my the sustain pedal on the piano kept moving back because it was like a slippery floor, so every time I was pressing it was going further and further back. And if you watch the video, I'm doing this like, oh my god, this is so uncomfortable to sing. The microphone is here and closer and closer. So then finding out that I need a towel or something for the friction for that pedal not to move, little things like that really make you've got to be comfortable playing your instrument. So again, learning, innit? But oh my god, I felt the pressure, dude. Unbelievable amount of pressure. And the best feeling is when the song kicks in on Never Win in particular, when the band kick in, it's like, oh, now I can relax because I can hide behind the music. It's not so just Shane. And the same with Blink of an Eye when we do the piano version of that. But I 100%, I don't kind of enjoy it yet. I'm not at that stage where it's like, yeah, this is my moment. I don't think I'll ever be like I do because I'm not that person. I'm so focused in do it right. That's what I say to myself at the end. Do it right. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But when the boys kick in, it's a massive relief. It's like, right, the boys are here. Yeah.
I can echo that because even like when we used to play Devil back in the day, Devil in my pocket, and like say if the boys would say, oh, ring a chord, or my worst one, Shane, is when we wouldn't have a song that like ended with a chord ringing or whatever. And I know what he means by that because sometimes drummers just go, oh yeah, this is my moment, and it's like, for me, I'm like, fuck, I can't wait for the band to kick in because it's just almost like I know what he means. It's just that empty space. I mean, at least he's playing something melodic and singing like fuck, but with a drum, you just
but you say that, bro, as if you do it right.
Yeah,
because in your head, if you make a mess up, there's nowhere to hide, man.
Well, your head is the worst thing because in that moment, even if it's just an intro to a song, and guitarists mind. I mean, don't tell them I've said this, and hopefully they won't watch it. But even that, even like a, even a Sweet Child of Mine, that's a big moment, because that's when the crowd go, yeah, we know this song, and if you go oh shit, there's no going back. You've just fucked it. Do you know what I mean? And you're waiting for that cymbal to come in and the band and so I know what you mean there, dude. It's sometimes be careful what you wish for, innit? And you've got the moment. And then you're like, oh no, my hands are sweating more than they normally sweat. Why are they sweating?
Exactly,
and
they slip.
People watching that while you're thinking that moment.
And they slip on the keys, and it's like, and you almost want to say, I normally play much better than this. It's just because it's sweaty.
It wouldn't fit into the song though, would it? For a verse, you just started singing it.
Yeah, you just lean towards the crowd, and you're like, hang on a minute.
Let me start that again.
Let me just mop this up a minute, and I'll be back in a minute.
Exactly. But as the second album was pretty decent and successful and stuff, the bigger the album is, the more pressure there is to put on a bigger show. And as a front man, I do feel that, like, because people are expecting there's certain parts in that song people want to sing, and they're expecting me to do X, Y, and Z. There's a build up, there's a journey in a song. But I think that's what, the more problems you give yourself, the better you become. And I can't, if you get through that, there'll be something else. So if there's something else on the third record, you're always growing, I guess, and evolving. Like you said, Aaron, that's the goal of any band, I believe. So you've got to be a little bit uncomfortable.
And it's only challenging because you care, boys. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
If it was easy and you weren't worried about it, there's a problem there. You just want to deliver the best you can for people that bought the record.
Exactly.
So obviously, you guys during lockdown started Growcast. It's now kind of turned into something much bigger with weekly guests. But like from the beginnings, like did you always think, oh, I'm going to bring in some guests, or was it like, something you thought, oh, we'll just do this for lockdown, or was there a plan?
It's something, like I said, Shane came up with the audio podcast idea years ago. We did one episode, like a pilot, which never really got utilised by the label, did it, Shane? It was almost like...
No, I've still got that. It's on my phone. We did it in my garage. We all kind of went round one microphone, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I remember Lloyd like leaning back, back and forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we had the idea there of a podcast, and then life gets in the way, and we were on an incredible journey. So, and momentum was taking off. So it was like, oh, we'll do that podcast. And then we'd have a go at each other in the van. Oh, we haven't done that bloody podcast, have we? We haven't done that podcast. So we're always thinking about what we should be doing and what we haven't done. And then COVID happened. And then me and Shane were just like ringing each other constantly, whether it be... God, I think some days, I don't know how many times it was in a day, just ringing each other with ideas, basically, of what we can keep doing, what are we able to do. And then it was just the frantic, right, well, we'll go back to the podcast thing. And but how are we going to do that? Because we can't be in a room. And how are 5 of us going to be in a room when, we can't be in a room? And then I was like, well, there's got to be a way. There's got to be some type of software out there. And so I phoned the label, and then I'm back on the phone to Shane going, right, the label are on it. We're going to have a solution for you. And then... me being impatient, I'm phoning a label constantly, and I'm like, so what's happening? Oh, we haven't really found a way. And I'm like, right. So then I'm phoning other people, and like we're all going nuts, like as in like, what can we do? And then finally, I was watching. I always listened to podcasts, and I watched an episode of a podcast I watch in America. I listened to in America, and I watched their format, and I was like, whoa, what are they doing for this? So then I spoke to the guy in America, and he was really super helpful. And then I said, but we want to be able to do multiple streaming, multiple platforms. And it was just this guy from a podcast show who just basically said, well, I've used this, we've done that, and this is what you need to do, and you need to put that with that. Are any of you good at doing this? And it was like, whoa, okay. There's obviously a bit to this. 2 weeks later, the ideas were all there. And like Shane and myself were riffing off ideas, how we're going to have guests on, how eventually we're going to have our own little unit, and, we're going to turn it into a proper like band style Joe Rogan show, where bands would want to come to our domain. And the worst thing was, the more this was getting better, and the lockdowns were becoming more restricted, weren't they, Shane? It was like, so it was like the shackles are on more. So we were like, no. So even episode 2, we had Mikey Evans on from Steelhouse. Episode 3, I'm not good at this game anymore. It's just so...
You've invented it. You've invented the game for yourself, and then...
Yeah, well, the worst thing is we do like the thumbnails and all of that vibe, and you can easily get lost. But yeah, we've had everyone from like, obviously, you go through the team, the people who've been around you, your promoters. John Norman's been on from Planet Rock, and then it was like Shane was going, oh, we should have Wyatt on, we should have Paul Anthony on, and then you start thinking of like the Wagons. We had the stream with them. So yeah, the idea, what I'm saying, it was always there, wasn't it, Shane? I don't want to kind of say it wasn't, because it was. How can we make this big? Yet again, with the piano, how can we make this different? How can we make it as big as it can be? Like,
yeah, man. I mean, for both of you, who's your favourite guest? Quickly on the fly, who's your favourite guest?
Ooh,
Ronnie, go first.
That's unfair. They're all like your babies, isn't they? You can't say that's quite creepy, actually. That's quite creepy. But
I wish you'd looked into the camera when you said it.
No, that'd be used over and over as a gift. I think favorite is, I'm going to change the favorite to some episodes that surprised me.
That's cool, man. Go with that.
One was Blaze Bailey. Totally didn't expect that. Literally like a bull in a china shop. Real whirlwind. Incredible guest. Full of energy. And And then other guests like Jimmy Watkins, Olympian, somebody from Wales. That's when Crowcast, it was really cool, man, because like you could tell like Crowcast was just becoming a bigger snowball because the guests were changing. So yeah, they were two among, good God, I don't want to name half of ones, and Shane's like, let me have a couple, but yeah, they were two which were like wow. But there are, that's nothing against the other guests.
No, not at all, man. What about you, Shane?
Oh man, there's so many, and all for different reasons. What I love about Crowcast is, right, you come on, you have these preconceptions, because some of these people we've never met, right? So you have these ideas of what these people are. You've seen them on stage, you've seen them perform, whatever their job role is, actresses. Ruth Jones was incredible because, even though she's local, lived down the road, she was a superstar, an international sort of successful actress, writer. So, from a success point level, she's done it. And then to have her on and for her to be so, local, so humble, so loving, so caring, loves our music, generally loves our music. And we knew that before we'd even got her on Crowcast because she dropped us messages and stuff. Was just a wonderful feeling. And then, like, we had Charlie Starr on literally yesterday.
Yeah, a massive Charlie Starr fan for me, boy.
I mean,
all that. Great.
And there was just something again about his personality, how calming, and you just wanna hang out with him. Like, you're really seeing these sides of people that you probably wouldn't see because not everybody can go backstage and meet people. And even when you do, it's probably after a show, so they're tired. You're not getting the real essence of that individual. And I think that's what Crowcast has really conveyed. And I can't help but Ricky Warwick, he's been on a couple of times, and these these hookups across LA, across in America, and we're hooking up with them, and probably wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for COVID. So again, it's about those opportunities and the positivities, what you can make out of something. But honestly, I think Ricky Warwick, so much fun, so much passion, still got it. Charlie yesterday was incredible, and Ruth Jones. They're probably my top three, but I'll probably go away now and think of others.
Yeah.
They're all brilliant.
And to back Shane up there, boys, it's just so hard to not leave other people out, innit? Like Johnny Owen.
There's one guest we had on that I was looking back. We had Danny Bowes on from Thunder, and incredible stories, but his internet connection, because he was one of the first guests.
We have the same problem, yeah.
It wasn't so good, so he was that stuttery sort of, and he had these amazing stories, and he was just cutting out every now and again, and we're like, damn it. So now we make, again, learning, we get them on before the show, make sure that internet connection's as good as they possibly can be. Those little adjustments make viewing better for when you go live. So, it's all learning process, but I'm sure we'll get Danny on again another point. So
yeah, and in our defense as well, Shane, it's like, like Shane said earlier, and echoing him, we hadn't met some of these people. Like, I'm going to name another one, Mark Andrews, WWE. I'm a massive wrestling mark. Like, I absolutely love the pay-per-views. I follow him, but I don't know. You just kind of, you don't want to cheekily say, can you check your mic out, or can you? And then when you're in the show, like what we do is live. I mean, worst comes to the worst with this now. We can go, can we cut that out? Or start? But you know what I mean? If you're doing like pre-recorded, which we have thought of, you can kind of, it'll help you a lot more, because we've decided, we'll go live at 9. It's fab, but then we were almost having to not be disrespectful when it's like Danny Bowes, as you said, and then you want to go, I didn't quite get that, Danny.
It's hard when it's live as well. I mean, we had Lips from Anvil wandering around his kitchen trying to get as close as possible to the router. I mean, you can't do that live, can you? Get Danny Bowes to wander around his conservatory, because it's just going to kill the rock and roll vibe, so it's a different dynamic.
It's the rock and roll, and as we all know, when you're in a band, you're asked, can you spare time? So you have time. I mean, some of these guests have other interviews, or some of them have other scheduled things lined up. So you can't really, it's almost like in a good interview, and you guys will probably get this as well, it's like you can't kill a moment. That's what I've learned doing this now, 51 weeks. If you're onto a hot chat or whatever, you can't kill it by chucking a an awkward thing in there, for example, like whether it be, and it just kind of it just ruins it. And then that gives them an excuse to go, oh, right, I gotta go. There's just little things like that in a Shane. You just learn your craft. Bizarre talking like this, we're in a band, like that's firstly, we're in a band, like, so.
Well, I mean, you boys have probably asked a lot of the people on Crowcast about it, but we're going to ask you boys about it on the flip side. I mean, one of the things we try and do is find out what people's lives are away from the stage, and for you boys away from Crowcast and the Crows. I mean, I'm getting the vibe that you two in particular live and breathe the Crows. But what do you both have individually away from it? Do you work? Do you have particular hobbies, things that make you happy?
I literally live, breathe this band. That's I have done now for, well, when I quit that job on the Bad Flowers tour. This is it. I don't do anything else really. It's like I keep saying, boys, you either want it or you do it part-time, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just what you want out of it, I guess. And without putting everything into it, I don't think we'd be able to achieve what we have done. Sacrifices that have, and like I said, off the second album, there's decisions I made, and I thought I was getting support from certain people, and it didn't happen. And then that changes your whole life. And it's you don't expect it. You don't see it coming. You don't think anything you do for the positivity of where you want to be as an individual is going to have an effect, a detrimental effect or a negative effect on the people that love and support you, but it does. And it's not a selfish thing. It's just, I think I've never been selfish. I've always done things for other people, and for the first time in my life, I kind of, what are you playing at? Do you want it? Do you want it or not? And I was really honest. And when I made those decisions, people didn't follow. And I respect and understand that, and those relationships ended, and I'm in a completely different place now to where I was 2.5, 3 years ago. And it's been tough, but this band is my everything right now, which I'm really proud to say.
I completely respect that, man.
I've got to just echo exactly what Shane says. This I had my eggs. We try to cleverly now just help the other boys out because we're all in different phases of life and stuff. But I was trying to balance my own business that I kind of had for 10 years and my passion, my love, which is music and the Crows. And that catches up with you. You're trying to kind of please everybody. Exactly what Shane said there, and I can't say it no better than that. But you genuinely don't end up pleasing yourself. And if anything, you're the one who's not enjoying anything because you're there, but you're not there. And I found myself telling everybody else and trying to be the nice guy. And I think I've said it to you, I'm like, you got to enjoy the moment. You gotta love this. And then you're faking it because in your own world, you're still not dealing with your own issues and your own problems. So I'm officially now a year out of a job, out of a business. I didn't even quit a job. I quit a lifestyle. I had my own business with a business partner, very successful, great money, a lot of money. And then it was the case of, no, this isn't enough. That doesn't make me happy. And I haven't got long on this ball of gas that we live on, and I kind of want to see it out, doing everything I can in my power to look back and not have any regrets. Especially like I was in a different position to say like Shane or other people in the world where my family in particular were so super supportive. So there's no excuse then, is there? Like, you haven't got the what could be your ex or your wife or whatever basically giving you the hard sell of you gotta do this is the right thing to do, and the music thing has to take a back step. I had everybody kind of supporting me and was like super behind the Crows. If anything, they were like so pro Crow. They were like, you got to sign the record deal. You got to get on tour. You got to do this. And I'm going, fuck, because I'm like, we're going to lose everything. And they're like, what, are you going to lose us? No. Well, then you haven't lost everything. So it's the case of, so then you have a reality check. And ever since then, I've just had this mantra like Shane where I just balance everything really super well now. I always think, I almost feel guilty. I don't know if you feel the same, Shane, sometimes. You have this pocket of time and you almost feel guilty that it's not on music. Like, do you know what I mean? It's almost like, I don't know, even when I go for a walk now, I listen to playlists. So I listen to albums because it's just, I want to really I'm so in love with music that I almost feel that anything else I do is just wasted. Like, do you know what I mean? It's time wasted. It's like I have Valhalla that I had for Christmas, a computer game, and that was wicked. I put it on, I had axes out, I was killing people, and then I'm like, and then the wife said to me the other day, you haven't really played that, have you? And I haven't. I'm still in my first settlement. But it was the fact of I'm like, I should be upstairs now, or there's podcasts I'd rather be editing, or you find a love for even like stuff that isn't music, which is music, and it's like the Crowcast. We're contacting guests, or we have a great manager now in place, a great agent. But that doesn't mean that you take your foot off a gas, boys. Do you know what I mean? They're there because you're doing well. The moment you step back and you're not pushing and you're not working hard, the moment that people can kind of go, oh, it's not quite working out. And we want to be one of them bands, isn't it? We want to be the band that's kind of asking, well, why aren't you doing this? Because we're doing that. Or we want to keep driving. We want to keep working hard. Yeah. We've just got you on tour with the Foo Fighters. Brilliant. What's next? It's like, I don't know, like, do you know what I mean? That sounds really mad, and it is mad. Like we have after shows after the Crowcast, don't we, bro? Where we like, how did that go for you? What could we do better?
How was that for you with a fag?
That's great for me. How was it for you?
Or do the Jim Carrey, I've had better.
But no, helping each other out of like, maybe that segment doesn't work as well, or we won't do that next time, or I don't know, just constantly trying to kind of be the best you can at what we do, and everything is Crows. I know that sounds like over the top, but that's what we are. We're just so fanatic for it, like, do you know what I mean?
No, complete respect for that, boys.
Yeah, that's cool. Of course, now we know that kind of gigs will be returning at some point this year. Do you guys have any like plans to like properly celebrate the album now that you can? Well, theoretically, kind of can.
Yeah, maybe take it out.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Are you going to take it out on the road?
It's mad, bro. February we done that tour. Small tour around the UK, sold out. We were so bowled over with the reaction. And then the world stopped. And then you're like, but we got so much touring to do on this album. We haven't scratched the surface. And then we were thinking, right, we're not going to do another album. We're just going to wait until the doors open again, and we're going to tour the shit out of this album because it deserves it. And the doors remain shut. And then there was an idea of doing an Ultimate Edition version of Point of No Return. We were writing some new material, and then the idea came, well, we'll put a new song on the Ultimate Edition and a couple of acoustic tracks of other songs. And then it was a case of, right, what now? I mean, and then, speaking to the label and management, and we were just like, well, this it's been shut down for 12 months. So that would have been 12 months of gigging, touring the album. So we're going to tour. We're going to write another album. But obviously, when the doors open again, we can tour the shit out of this album. But the idea is to write another one. So yeah, we're just non-stop, really, dude. I mean, and hopefully we'll have 3 albums worth of material ready for the bigger shows. If we're higher up on bills and stuff, or we're doing our own sort of show. So, I mean, it's all. It's what you make of it, I guess. But it is frustrating, boys. And I'm not going to lie, I was really not looking forward to writing a new album because I feel like we hadn't scratched the surface, like I said, with the second album. But I feel like now it's been out long enough. It's not dead. Of course it's not. We're going to be playing these songs on tour, but it just feels like we need new material now. We need this. Too much time has passed. So we're writing again.
Awesome, boys. I'm looking forward to that next stage in your development. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, if you look at the albums and, like you say, live and just your overall story, everything's moving forward and progressing. So it'll be interesting to see what the next turn of the cycle is for the Crows, man.
Finally, a bit of a hypothetical question that I like to ask everybody at the end. If you could pick one band from the past and one band from the present to tour with, who would they be?
Do you want to go first?
Are you sure?
I always do
It's a
that
big
to Ryan. I always ask Ryan a question so I can have about half an hour to think about it.
Well, for me, it would be Queen,
Cool.
God, man.
and it would probably be Foo Fighters.
That's good.
Yeah, solid.
Because I mean, it could have been Nirvana too. I mean, anything with Dave Grohl. I just think both bands are incredible live. They bring the audience in. Like, there was nobody better than Freddie Mercury. That man was such a powerhouse one minute, then completely vulnerable the next, then completely flamboyant the next song. Like, what a roller coaster of a show you would have with that band. And songwriting is incredible.
Unbelievable.
And then you got Dave Grohl on the Foo Fighters. You know, I think we've had this conversation before, Ron. You know, even if he was like behind the kit on Nirvana or something, or up front, incredible. They're the two for me.
Yeah, I always laugh and whatever because I'm hoping that he'll choose someone else.
That's why I said you want to go first.
Yeah, I know. I should have done it, man. Because I was thinking, I know if I go first, I know it's equally the same script. Like he would turn around and go, "Oh God." Yeah, everything that Shane just said, I double down on. I suppose if I have to go different, it would be the Police.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah, not just on a musical, because the Crows from day one, yet again, this is why we've always been on the same page. It's more than just banging out songs. It's more than just writing a song and then just putting it in a set. It's how is that set crafted? How does that set work? And not just for the band on a selfish stage, is how do you connect with your crowd? So like Long Time Dead, when we wrote that, we were in the practice room and the first thing we thought of, there's a middle part, this wicked, there's a break, but then we could do like a bit of a, where the jazz musicians back in the day would all go around individually, boom, doom, 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 and then it goes to the thing. We'll do it with the crowd and get them to clap. And that was the interchange, like, you know, it keeps the band in time, which is hard when you're live as well, when you've got a few people who clap out of time. But it makes it fun. So that's why I'm saying the Police, because it's that whole, I don't think, like, I never had the privilege to go and watch him. I was so close to seeing him. And the guy who was taking me, his missus wanted to go last minute, which is typical. They're not even together
What was
anymore.
she thinking?
They're not even together anymore. Do you know what I mean? I'm still mates with him. But yeah, so it was more from the jam aspect of, and plus they've got tunes, but it's how they would, I don't know, they would do a song and it'd be 3.5 minutes and they would make it 6.5 or 7. But then the next video you watch is completely different again because they've got just little jams and little interchanges and little ways of segueing throughout the, taking you on a journey, like, you know. Present. I'd love to see the Foos. I mean, you know, they're the top.
Say the Foos if you want, man. You know, I mean, Shane's already picked them.
Muse. I'll go Muse.
Ooh.
Music's an interesting choice. You see, that's a lot of people see them as like a modern day Queen because it's a similar band where they've developed and they've changed the style and like you say, it's a lot of the things you boys draw off where it's about what can you do next, what's next, you know, in the story.
Yeah, I mean, I listen to like whether it be Fleetwood Mac or Muse or anyone like that, but Muse, me and Shane have always talked about because it's yet again that arena. I mean, I watched them play. I was watching on YouTube the other day. I think they were playing like Tokyo or somewhere like that, and it was just their stage show was phenomenal. Their lighting, it really filled the room. Pardon, you know, it's an arena, like, but it was just like it's a spectacle. Like, do you know what I mean? And I love that about bands like that, or whether it be Metallica or AC/DC rocking up, or Iron Maiden, as the joke was, which Blaze Bailey said, turning up with a Spitfire on stage. Like, it's how do you become bigger? How do you, that Motley Crue circus? So Muse have got that for me, and there's similarities, like I said, whether it be the piano aspect of the band, or whether it be like we're going to do acoustic sessions like Foo Fighters did, or stuff like that. It's how do you turn that into a big rock and roll extravaganza, like, so.
No, nice one, boys. Nice one. Right, for those that haven't checked out the Ultimate Edition of Point of No Return, which is out now, go check it out. If you've not checked out the clip of Shane dry humping the piano at Steelhouse, make sure you check that out, which we'll be doing afterwards. And thanks ever so much for your time, boys. Honestly, if you've not checked out Crowfest and the overall like vibe with the Crows boys, please check them out. Like, I think honestly, chatting to you both like then, it's just, I love the story and just the essence of what you boys are trying to achieve. If they're so organic and so real, we both really vibe off that. So thanks for your time, gents.
Boys, thank you so much. Aaron, Ryan, thank you, boys.
It's been really cool, man. Yes, so that was Ronnie and Shane of Those Damn Crows.
I really enjoyed that, man. I thought it was the goodest of vibes. And I said something at the end, right? And when I said my overall summary of the interview, and when I was doing it, I thought, fucking hell, this sounds shit. This is going to be corny as hell. But I think it's true, with the Crows. It does feel like it's a biopic already written. The story with the people that was involved in getting them to where they are, it's got this real heartwarming vibe. And I love Shane and Ronnie's relationship. Like they truly live and breathe the band and just that overall pushing it with the most possible energy they can. And I think a lot of people can take inspiration from that, definitely.
Yeah, it's a big reason to why I do this kind of. So where did it all begin for you? That is exactly why. When they talked about going through the college and having the teacher that like pulled Ronnie out of that geography class and invested in a drum kit and stuff like that, and it's like this is exactly why I want to push those kind of things, because every so often you get a story like that, and it's like a movie, isn't it?
It's mad. And I think a lot of bands seem to have this, but obviously the Crows particularly, seem to have that with their journey. And one of the things that I really enjoy about interviewing bands and musicians, I think once you get to know them and find out these stories, you have a natural attachment to them.
Yeah.
And I hope a lot of people who've not checked out the Ultimate Edition of Point of No Return will now make that effort to check them out. I can't wait to see them live again. Obviously we're gigging with them later in the year. I haven't seen Crows live in years, man. Like we say, when I gigged with them, we had Bad Flowers, which obviously became Wolfjaw years ago. So I'm looking forward to seeing that evolution, particularly in a live setting, because I think that's where they really come alive.
Yeah, it was really interesting where Shane talked about when they first brought in the piano and stuff like that. It's cool. All adds to that story.
It does indeed.
So that is it for this week. If you'd like to follow us on Facebook and Instagram and all those things, you'll find that every Wednesday we have a teaser for the guests that we're going to have on that said week. So you're missing out if you're not following us on that. So
what Uncle Aaron needs you to do. Right? It's not creepy. It's all right.
Just stare into camera too.
Right. What Uncle Aaron needs you to do is if you are watching us on lovely YouTube, make sure you subscribe, like, and share the video. And we've got a group on Facebook as Ryan said, and a page. Invite your friends. Let's get this community building around the bands we've got on, because I think that some of the stories that we chat about as things that I've never personally known, and I think it's cool that if we build that community around and support the bands that are coming on, as well as me and Ryan doing our thing in his front room, So get on the vibe, people.
Yes.
Big love.
Yes. So we will see you next week.
We will.